Okay, everyone in Lawless, virtual Lawless. My name is Lawrence McKenna. I'm a member of a Belfast 2080 fan group called Sector 13, and I'd like to introduce my colleagues and friends. Firstly, Peter Duncan. Say hi, Peter.
Hello.
William Simpson. Say hi, Will.
Hi, Lawrence.
And Mark McCann. Say hi, Mark.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, Lawless have asked several groups and parties to do interviews about themselves and also to interview creators. So I think without any real further preamble, we'll let Peter Duncan interview William Simpson. And to 2080 fans, I'm sure William Simpson is a name of some note. He has done some fantastic work in 2080, particularly in Judge Dredd and in the Rogue Trooper War Machine, amongst many other things. So I'll just pass you on to Peter, and Peter will commence the interview with William.
Thanks very much. Will, first time I think I ever saw your work was in a fanzine called ZMOC a long time ago. How'd you get involved with ZMOC?
It is a long time ago, yeah. I wanted to do a kind of as professional as I could comic book. And young and naive, with a bunch of other guys in Belfast, we produced a magazine called ZMOC. And I got to, work on my own story. And, I thought I was hopefully making some inroads into comic strips. After the third issue, I had my first ever fallout with an editor who said that as I was trying to take work down to go away and copy it, he said, "No, you can't do that because it belongs to us." And I said, "You fuckers haven't even paid for it, so how the hell does it belong to you guys?" And that was it. That was my first amazing argument with an editor. Walked out of the place. Thought, well, that's the end of my comic career because it hadn't even begun. I mean, it was just a fanzine. And, that's how I kind of got involved with ZMOC.
And stopped being involved with it fairly quickly.
Kind of stopped being involved. Yeah, 3 issues. I got to do a cover. I got to do half of another cover. It's kind of interesting. But I carried on with my artwork. I mean, I carried on with doing comic strips that I wanted to do. I'd even got the fourth installment of the story I was working on. And a bunch of months later, I came home one night and sacrificed my dinner of Rivita and cheese for a copy of The Daredevils from British Marble. And there was an amazing write-up in the comments page or review page that basically said that they liked my work, and that caused me to bombard British Marble with lots and lots and lots of images which weren't quite right, but in the end I got work out of British Marble. I actually got work out of Warrior first. That was the other thing.
Yeah, Warrior. I remember Warrior magazine in 1984. The mid-80s that you were still working mainly in British comics. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then you got
great.
Vertigo.
British comics were great. Well, it was a wonderful place to be working. And for me, if a company took me on, I was very, very happy just to carry on working away. And it was one of those brilliant things where I went from Warrior to British Marble and then on to 2000 AD. And that was the pinnacle of anything in British comics at the time. So, I really enjoyed it.
2000 AD is probably where most of us and most of the people at Lawless first came across your work. What highlights would you have had from that period? You couldn't get better than working on Judge Dredd. I mean, it was kind of, one of those things that it was like doing Batman or doing Spider-Man or something like that. I mean, it was the biggest thing in British comics, and he was kind of the god.
And I worked on. I mean, I'd done some Future Shocks. I did a Universal Soldier. I got to work then on some Dread stuff, and I really enjoyed that. And then I got to work with John Smith on Tyranny Rex, which was nuts. And I mean, it was a really good story to work on, his whole soft bodies thing. And also through a complete kind of weird set of circumstances, I ended up getting to work on Rogue Trooper, the new version, the Friday. And I mean, it seemed to just go down really, really well. And for me, it was a huge experiment. You know, it was just great fun to do.
I think for a lot of us, that was where your work exploded out, and it's probably the thing we remember best. You know, the 2000 AD fans.
Mm. I think because it was quite substantial. I mean, it was an 80-page story in the end, some 82 pages, I don't know, something like that. And you know, because I'd been playing around with a lot of color work, Judge Dredd, and experimenting there. I mean, there's a whole very weird assortment of Dredd stories that I got to paint. And when I did Rogue Trooper, it was like all of that stuff was piled into Rogue Trooper, and you know, sometimes you would have time on it, other times you would have a day to turn out a page, and it was just nuts. It was a great, you know, it was me fulfilling all my interest in war stories, and the idea of future war stories were fantastic. And you know, my anti-war stance and war is hell and all that sort of stuff made a very bloody creation at the time. So anyway, it was something that was really worth doing, and it's been now reprinted about 4 times. I think there was two. There's the original run in 2000 AD. Then there was the heavy metal version, and then there was the Tundra hardback version, and then 2000 AD did another version. So it's kind of rolled along.
And it did lead directly to you going over to the US and working on Vertigo.
Yeah, well, it was Garth, really. You know, I got this weird opportunity to do some Hellblazer stuff, and again, it was an accident. I did some inking on Brett Ewing stuff, and because he was up for doing it, and they kind of said no to that. And then I said, well, could I try a couple of pages, which I did, and I got the job. So it kind of worked out in my favor. And then I did a lot of Hellblazer. I think it was about 2 years worth of Hellblazer. I'm not sure. I seem to be working on it for 2 years anyway. And then I got offered some Alien stuff. I got a little bit of Batman and Legends of the Dark Knight. I did some Hellraiser. I did, and then I did Vamps for DC Comics with Elaine Lee, which you know, was a created by Elaine and myself. That was fun.
And I know from talking to you that that's one of the things you're proudest of in a way.
Well, kind of, because we came up with the characters, and you know, we did 3 series. I often say 3 seasons because that's what it felt like. It was like a movie, really. But it was a or a TV series. It was great, and certainly it's one of those things that I would love to have done more of, but hasn't happened.
Not yet.
Well, you never know with DC.
When did the move into movies and TV come?
Well, it was kind of, I mean, I was doing I did the 3 series of Vamps, and sort of in that era, I was, I did some animation as well with my brother Ken on our Rogue Rocket stuff. We set up a small company during the time period, and we were trying to do our own stuff, and we got pretty close at different times. But the film and TV business is notorious. It's even weirder than the comic business. And but the thing is, I started doing storyboarding work for all sorts of films to kind of bring in a load of cash. And that then carried on. I mean, it just became a thing where I did conceptuals in some films, and I did storyboards in a lot of other ones. And that's been kind of my bread and butter for quite some time. And in between, I would do occasional comic projects, because the thing is, comics for me were always a movie anyway. I mean, it was like I'd stepped into a zone where my whole background was watching film and TV and my science fiction reading and so on. And I'd always wanted to turn out kind of cinematic stories when I was doing comic books, because there's kind of different directions you could go, and you could go cartoon wise, or you could go a more realistic side of things, I suppose, and that way. And but it still became this thing where you were thinking, movie sequences in your head whenever you were doing stuff, and that carried on into, of course, the storyboarding work that I did, which strangely was, of course, like comic strip work. The first feature film I got to do, 24 Hours in London, was one of those things where I'd kind of met a friend in London and was asked, would you like to work on the movie doing storyboards, but it's low budget, we don't have a lot of cash. And I thought to myself, because it was in between work, I thought, how difficult can it be? It's a comic strip. And so the thing was, it really was in the end. It was a transference of skills into storyboarding. And I think it kind of helped, just because I was used to drawing detail and drawing fast, I guess. And so that's what my storyboards were.
You're probably best known for the Game of Thrones. Were you both conceptual design and storyboards for that?
At the very, very beginning, because I worked on the pilot, I'd just come off, I was coming off a job, Your Highness, where I had done both concepts and storyboards. I did a couple of months of concepts and then a couple of months of storyboarding on Your Highness, which was a whole blast. And Mark Huffam, the producer, asked me, could I do some moonlighting on this other project that was possibly coming along? And I said, what is it? And he couldn't tell me. And I said, well, what's it about? And he said, it's medieval fantasy. And I said, well, that's not that far removed from Your Highness. And it isn't really. Your Highness is nuts, but it's not that far removed. It's guys with swords and sorcerers and so on. Anyway, so I was asked to do some concept pieces, and I talked to the production designer, the supervising art director, and did some concept stuff that they then sent away to America. There was only 2 people working on this project, it seemed, in Belfast. And Mark came to me partway through Your Highness and said, we've got Game of Thrones. And I said, is that what I've been working on? And he said, yes. And I said, well, does that mean I have a job? And he said, absolutely. So after I finished Your Highness, which definitely it was a Wednesday, and I started, I think, on the Thursday on Game of Thrones. And it just was one of those things where because I was basically some kind of all-round artist there, I was working for different departments all at the same time because it was the pilot, and they knew they could come to me and just ask, hey, could you do some of this, could you do some of this, could you do some of this? And so I started off designing the weapons in Game of Thrones, all the hero weapons that you kind of see through the first season are all mine, and then they carry on. And then they would ask me, hey, we need something for the White Walkers. Can you design White Walkers? And I sat down and came up with a bunch of paintings for the White Walkers, which they then went and adapted and turned into the White Walkers, which was great. And after that, I did a painting of the Godswood tree. I did carriages for Cersei. I did a whole bunch of stuff. And at the same time, then they asked me, could I storyboard the pilot, which I did. And when the first season started, I did a little bit more concept work on, characters and bits of armor and more weapons. The knife cat's paw that they try to kill Bran with is one of mine. And it just kind of was, there was a bit of that, and then there was all the storyboarding for the first season. And the second season kind of went similar, but as the project got bigger and bigger, they had a lot of concept artists doing brilliant painted work on castles, computer painted work, and so on, and adapting things like Dunluce Castle into being the Iron Islands and stuff. And they would attach the concept imagery to actual places. So that was kind of a whole different area. I mean, I was sitting there drawing ideas, and that was it really. Game of Thrones just became a massive storyboarding job for me in the end, and a lot of bits of artwork in between. So it's good. It was good. It turned out to be very good, actually.
I think it's one of the things for us. It's always been a bit weird that the bloke that comes and sits in the pub with us makes the same silly jokes that we do is the fella who created the White Walkers that have become completely iconic in fantasy, and probably have changed an awful lot of other fantasy adventures and comics. Do you ever think that way, or is it another job?
You do think of it as another job, and then some days you find out that you're being called up from somewhere across the planet to come out and do a talk somewhere, and you kind of suddenly realize, whoops, it's me they want. This is pretty weird. And it's kind of been, I mean, one of the wonderful dividends of Game of Thrones was that I ended up, halfway across the globe, and it's been really interesting to go and talk to people and meet people and so on, because a lot of the time you're put on a stage with an actor, and of course everybody wants to talk to the actor, and they wonder, who's this bloke? And suddenly when the questions are asked, you know so much more about what it is that you were working on, and then they come on and see you afterwards and realize, you did this, you did this, you did this. It's kind of cool. Yeah, I like it. But no, because the next thing, Game of Thrones finishes, and for the next 2 years, I was working on a whole bunch of other movies and comic work and so on, and got time to do a couple of covers and things. And you guys even benefit out of that. It's really nice to do. Yeah.
On one of our Sector 13 issues, which everybody should now send in money to me to buy.
Pretty good, yes. And then I worked with Mark as well. Of course, I got to work with Mark McCann doing a bit of heavy metal work, which was kind of nice. Yes, interesting job, that one. I was ready to kill Mark at a certain point because thought, oh my God, look what this man's asking for. I don't understand what the hell's going on.
Yeah, I feel for you, Will. I was definitely pushing the boundaries of what I thought I could get away with on the page with that particular strip. But in fairness, you did an epic job on it. So
it was a very interesting one. I had to take it away on a little trip to a festival in Herceg-Novi. In Montenegro, and I sat for 2 days in a hotel room drawing up part of that and painting up part of it, because I thought to myself, I gotta keep working on this. I've got to keep going. I got to make a deadline of some sort, even though it was very kind of iffy. Anyway, it was the only way I could get it finished. So that was an interesting one. Instead of being out in the sunshine and chatting to a bunch of people down by a beach, I was sitting in my hotel room drawing a story for Mark McCann. There you go.
Sorry I ruined your holiday, Will.
Oh, no, it didn't. It actually gave me relief from drinking their incredibly toxic drink.
Fair.
That particular story was a bit of a dream. I managed to get myself a wee credit in that, and that
yeah, it was good.
In Heavy Metal, which was the magazine that sort of, whenever I was 17 years old, was the thing that cemented comics for me with people like Bilal and Roulet and Mobius. So I must say, it was great having you there, because that got me a credit in that.
See, there you go. Sitting in a bar chatting does wonders for a person. What was that? What was a bar? I've forgotten.
Oh my God.
Such a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, there once was a place that was a bar.
You've been working more with 2000 AD there, with a few Future Shocks, and getting back to Dread again.
That was a really interesting experience, and I still haven't got a clue whether it was liked or not liked. It was just one of those things that I was lucky enough to get to do. because I knew my friend Glenn Fabry was doing some Future Shocks, and I just chanced my arm one day and asked Matt, "Hey, do you have any other Future Shocks hanging around?" And I was also a little bit nervous, getting back into doing a comic book piece. But I mean, I've been working on my own stuff for a long time, but it still was something else to kind of go on to working on an actual proper comic magazine, which I appreciate it so much. I mean, 2000 AD was, it's one of those things where in hindsight you look back at the stuff that you were doing years before and knowing that that was probably one of the most enjoyable periods of doing comic strips. And because 2000 AD always had this thing where they basically wanted the artist to do his best, and they didn't interfere too much with anything. And basically you were so aware of the other artists that were working on it at the time and the ones that you were following on from, that you tried so hard to make your stuff kind of stand out on the page. And some of it succeeded, some of it didn't. And the thing was, getting the new work was really almost like going back to, when you did comics for yourself, as like back to the Zemo days. In a sense, it was almost like, you were enjoying it so much more as opposed to it being a job, because I had my film work as a job, and I enjoyed doing the Future Shock, and Matt had given me a painting to do for like a poster mag. So the comic strip was on one side of it, the Dread one, this was, and the painting was on the flip side. And that was great fun to do because, I mean, that was really sort of stepping into the old territory again. And then I got the chance to do the Dread strip, which was, that was just great fun. That was great fun to do because it was back to sort of Banana City days, which is a period of time that I absolutely loved because I got to design, part of that.
You mentioned that you have your own ideas and your own strips. We were lucky enough to get an excerpt from one of your long things, Horse Sense. Yeah, I'm getting the adverts in here, Will.
That's very good of you. I like this. But, the thing that was nice with that was, I had been doing stuff for myself, and I had, I'm going to ask Mark a question. Oh, shit, he's not there. The point was, I had been doing stuff for myself. I mean, there's a big project that I want to do, a big prehistory thing. And Horse Sense was just a little part of it. And it's been, it was just really nice to do because, I mean, I've always been into kind of Conan and stuff like that. It was one of the reasons I started doing comics. And the thing was, just allowing myself to play around with a character for a while was brilliant because, see, I've been, all these years, I've been writing stuff as well because when my brother and I had our animation company, we were coming up with ideas for things, and basically I was the one that got designated to write some stuff, which I did. And that then led on to me writing some short film scripts and making a short film. And then that led on to writing some feature film scripts and getting very close to making a feature. And, the point was, I kept writing then, and I'm not, I don't find it something that occupies all my days, but I get the urge every now and again to write something, so I get on with it. And I hope in the end they'll end up getting done. I mean, most of the stuff that I've done could be a graphic novel, could be a film. It just depends. So doing Horse Sense for you guys was, having had it done and offering it up was such a nice thing. The fact that you didn't say no, that was good. You didn't look upon it and think, oh my God, look at this guy trying to be a writer. Jesus. No, it was great fun to do. And of course, it's led to the next one. My second Horse Sense story. And the thing is, I've got the bigger book that I would like to do, and it's a case of getting time to carved into my day to be able to do these things.
Yeah, yes. One of the purposes of what we're doing here is to ask people how they've coped with lockdown and the pandemic. Has it made a huge difference to you?
Not really, except that I get to work at home. I mean, I've always worked at home anyway, because I would do my work at the studios on the different films, and then at night I would come home and I'd be having my own projects that I would like to get on with. So I always had an extra couple of hours in the evening to do some other stuff. So it's kind of been like that has taken over, and I have carried on. You know, I mean, I had work to do just before lockdown, and I had work then during lockdown, and my whole lockdown phase has just been doing what I normally do, except I'm at home doing it, and I haven't found it a particular hardship. I mean, I've been able to walk out into the garden and go and dig some holes and plant flowers where I'm told to plant flowers, and it's all been kind of fun, and you know, then back to work. So I think most of the artists have come out of this pretty well. A lot of artists were able to get on with their artwork, and I certainly was. And I had one trip last year when they weren't quite sure whether COVID was, you know, how deadly the whole thing was. And I had this one trip, which was one of these where you kind of go, I've got to try this. I'm going to do the trip. And as it turned out, I was a week in the sun, drawing pictures for people and chatting and stuff, and mask on, mask off, mask on, mask off, sanitizing the hands, everything. You know, I did everything that made sense, and then I went swimming, and it was great. And then I came back home, and I self-isolated. I stuck myself in one of our upper rooms with my work, and I spent a week in the room, and until I realized I don't have a damn thing. I'm fine, and as it turned out to be, it was okay. So yeah, I think I was very lucky last year, but I was very happy being at home and working. You know, I could sit out in my garden, which was great.
Is there anything you can give away about what's coming up in the next few months or year?
I'm working on a Disney project that, of course, I've signed in blood, and the drones are flying over just to make sure that I don't step out of line. I've done that. I've got a nice little strip for you guys with John Smith. I've got a Turning Rex to do, which I'm really looking forward to. I mean, it's been hanging around for, what is it now, Lawrence? Is about a year, 2 years?
1 year, 6 months, 12 days.
Oh my God, that's shocking. Anyway, but the point was, the other day I started working out roughs on it, and thinking this is great fun. So I'm looking forward to making a little bit of space for that. I have a short film that I'm working on at the moment as well. I'm doing storyboards for, but I've got another one that I've written that I'm hoping to get to make. I've got another feature film coming up soon here in Belfast, which would be fun. Yeah, I mean, things just keep rolling along, and you keep your fingers crossed and hope that it all works.
Well, I hope it's too long until we're all sitting again, either inside or outside the parlour bar.
Is that next?
And seeing whether there's any other artists in the building we can wind up a little bit.
Yes.
You're probably the most guilty of, Will.
What? Me? Come on, guys. I've heard Mark McCann doing incredible impressions of people, so...
Thank you very much, Will, for talking to us. And
okay, guys.
we'll see you again very soon. Thank you.
I hope so. Thanks a lot. Bye.